Bună ziua, hello, здравствуйте. Мое выступление будет на английском языке, но я с большим удовольствием отвечу на все вопросы на любых языках, которые вам удобны. В двух словах о себе перед тем, как я начну. Меня зовут Влад. Да, как и рассказала Елена, я последние 6 лет занимаюсь тем, что мы работаем в сфере ноу-кода, в различных его проявлениях, во всех возможных его проявлениях. И я думал, когда я думал о том, что будет ценно и важно для конференции, посвященной продукт-менеджерам, я собрал, насколько это возможно, чтобы уместить в полчаса какие-то практические советы того, что делать с ноу-кодом, и, наверное, даже в большей степени того, что делать не нужно. То есть мои коллеги много рассказывали очень классных и полезных вещей про системное мышление, про подход, про методику. Я постараюсь перевести данный разговор плавно в плоскость инструментов, того, как они могут вам помочь конкретно в реализации тех же самых методов и как могут помешать. Начнем с этого. So, no-code product management, do's and don'ts. Let's start from a little bit of an intro about myself. So, my name is Vlad. I live and work in Chisinau for the last 8 years. I'm actually from Uzbekistan, so I've lived in there for 20 years of my life. And I'm a telecommunications engineer, so I have a kind of a technical background before stepping into no-code and business in general. For the last 15 years probably, I've been working as a systems engineer, as a product manager, as a project manager in multiple different companies, mostly big corporate entities that were working around the world. So, and initially when I stumbled upon the idea about no-code in general, it was actually my co-founder that introduced me to it. This is a whole separate story on its own. We randomly met in a co-working in Chisinau. I'm from Uzbekistan, he's from Kazakhstan. We probably were the two only people in Chisinau from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, and we met at the same table, so we started the company together. So 6 years later, we're still working on it every day. So initially my take on this was quite skeptical, as probably most people still do today. No code, what is this? I mean, this is not serious. This is for creating simple landing pages. This is for, I don't know, pretty pictures, some simple e-commerce, and that's it. So how is this related to product management? We're doing real things here, not landing pages. But this was my opinion exactly. So, but when I actually seen the product, when I've actually seen how it works, and seen multiple other products, no-code is a huge world, actually, I'll tell about this in a second. I was very impressed with actually this being a real tool, basically a next generation tool for doing product management, product development, and pretty much anything that you need for IT services. But about that in a second. So we started Zero Code together. So what is Zero Code? As the name suggests, we're a company that works primarily in no-code. We do everything no-code. So we're together, all our services and products united. We're a suite of no-code tools that are helping to launch your ideas fast. Fast nowadays not only means speed, it also means efficiency, and it means costs in various priorities depending on where you're coming from. So Zero Code is a place for all things no code. We have over 150, I think by now, application templates, which can be a baseline for realizing and working with any of the ideas in pretty much any segment. And probably over 300 plugins by now that are helping you to enhance your product functionally or visually. And we also, of course, do the custom development on top of that. So, why no code to begin with? So, landing pages, how is this related to product management? So, there are two definitions of no code, actually, that people don't always realize what it is. So, most of the people nowadays, when they say no code, they mean website builders that are somehow helping you to not pay the developers or spare the time of the engineers, as one of the speakers was saying. So it's true that those tools are no code, and we're actually working in one of those. But the no code concept is actually much wider than that. It's a philosophy, if you will, because what is no code? So to put it very bluntly, it is a tool that you can use to create something without necessarily coding. And I would say that most of you are actually pros in multiple no-code tools without actually actively realizing that. Because today, let's say what a life of a product manager is. He opens his email, he sends an email, maybe he has an email campaign running, so he schedules a couple of meetings, he creates the tasks, he or she makes some notes in his, I don't know, to-do app, and off it goes. 20 years ago, maybe even not so much, or 30 years ago, this was definitely not possible to be done by one single person. To create an email campaign, you actually needed a programmer, basically to sit down, get a list of emails, define what the HTML body of the email is, schedule it, do a cron job that will do that recursively and stuff like that. Same for a lot of tools that we are using nowadays. We're using them, Microsoft Word is a great example. If someone has used Unix or Linux-based systems, you know what a cat is, you know what a VI is. It's the same tool that's used for text editing, but it's like completely different beast that produces actually the same result in the end of the day. So no-code is about that. No-code is about simplification and letting people with less technical background do and achieve the same things. So it's pretty much the same in programming, meaning the programming languages when they first appeared, and actually to this day, the computer doesn't understand programming languages. The computer only understands ones and zeros, whatever is the programming language you're using. So what you're actually using is a kind of an overhead tool that becomes more and more human when you're programming in it, like Python. It's basically like almost plain English, like JavaScript. Without even knowing JavaScript, you're kind of reading what it says and you understand what it means. IDEs that programmers use for their development are pretty much, well, tools that are using to simplify the process. So no-code tools are actually everything that makes your life easier to actually create some things or achieve some things. So, and this is about that. So when we're getting asked what kind of tools we're working with, we're saying that no-code tools that we're working with are the next generation programming languages. Essentially, as Ileana said, using those tools, there are a myriad of them. You can create products, services at the level of Airbnb, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you name it, or any other custom idea that usually people come to us for without knowing code. How is this relevant for product managers? So it is a lot about the benefits, so obviously the benefits are there. So it's fast, it's easy, you can do it much faster, you can do it yourself in most of the cases, but the same benefits can actually be a detriment to certain processes. And I'm here to share all of the mistakes that we have done as a company and all of the mistakes that our customers done as companies. So you would probably make a little bit less of them, or not, but let's see. So, first, the don't of no-code. As I mentioned, the first don't of no-code is something that most of the people get stuck on and they don't even move further, is don't underestimate no-code. So for most of the people, I'm betting that for most of the people in this room, no-code is a toy that you can maybe use on a weekend to maybe work on some sort of a project of yours and then forget about it. But no-code, since I've been around, which is the last 6 years, and even like much earlier than that, is a tool that has been used to build multi-million-dollar companies. The companies in no-code have been, I think every year there's a company that's built one way or another with no-code components that is part of the Y Combinator, which is one of the mostly recognized and respected accelerators in the world. Companies that are raising millions of dollars, companies that are earning millions of dollars, they're all built with no-code, one way or another. So no-code is a viable tool that is definitely not a joke for your weekend project. So some of the companies are listed here. Some of them are our customers. For example, this is one of the first questions that people ask. Okay, so no-code is great. So can you show me a startup that does something with no-code? Yeah, we can show a few, definitely. So. From the most known ones, I think the great example that's not listed here is actually, I'm sure that a lot of you heard about Lambda School. Lambda School is basically an online code educational school that is free to learn, but then they charge you after you land a job in software development. So kind of a unique concept, very respected, very well known in certain circles, and their full front end is made with no code. I mean, they're sure to have a lot of coders in a coding school, both good and bad, but still, there's a lot of them. But they chose to create their front end with a combination of Webflow, Calendly, Airtable, and a few other no-code tools, and looks great, works good, and is fast to iterate. A few other companies that we're aware of, basically, well, Coins, for instance, is a mobile application that you're installing on your phone, and it's doing the rounding up of all the transactions that are going through your bank account. And there, for example, if you bought a coffee for $1.70 or a croissant for $2.80, it rounds it up to 2 and 3 respectively, and sends the rest to your savings account, and people are paying off their debts much faster. So MakerPad, the M button out there, is a major resource for everything related to no-code, to building, to finding mentors, to finding educational resources, templates, and stuff. They have been recently acquired by Zapier. And it's actually another no-code company that has acquired a startup that was built without code. So, and there's a lot of examples. So some of them are working on the market from 2014, I think, or maybe even earlier, like Dividend Finance, for instance. This is a credit processing company in the United States. I think they have attracted around $300 million in funding to this day, and they have processed over $2 billion in loans. So it's a real deal. Last but not least, Zero Code from Moldova. We are a company that is actually on the market for the last 6 years, and everything that we do is about no-code. So, and many others, so I can talk about this for quite some time. So what do you do instead? You need to find the right tool, because no-code world is huge. Your idea is probably unique, meaning that not every tool is going to be super 100% matching your idea at this particular point in time. And there are multiple tools. I mean, if I would try to include all the tools to the slide, I would probably miserably fail, because there's like hundreds of them, if not thousands. And back in 2020, we as a company here in Moldova, actually, we organized the first online no-code conference, the biggest in the world in 2020. We had almost 2,000 people tuning in and listening to us. And we found out that the no-code world is actually even bigger than we know. So some of the names you probably heard of, like, I don't know, Typeform, Calendly, Zapier, Webflow. I'm guessing that most of you, one way or another, heard about those companies and maybe even used them. They're pretty, like, open and liberal. But there's a ton of companies that are working on specific market niches for the last 20 or 30 years that are also doing it without code and are super successful, but they're just not advertising this publicly because they have no need to. For example, we met a few companies that are working specifically in the German lawyers market, and they're building the processes for them because they're super tailored to this particular niche, and they're super convenient to be used by the companies. So the companies are saving a ton of money and time using that tool. So, and even from these tools, they are also specific to some particular use cases. For Airtable is a database on steroids, right? So that you can use without any knowledge about what a database is or how it works. So it's very visual. You can add a lot of components to it. It's perfect. Zapier is basically a connecting tool between everything and everything. So this is probably one of the tools that you're probably going to find it used for in any scenario. We're big fans of Bubble, which Elena mentioned. Bubble is a no-code web-based building platform that does pretty much anything. But for some of the use cases, maybe it's a little complex. But again, you need to find the right tool for your industry, regardless of what it is. Business, finance, web dev, customer service, restaurants. There's probably a no-code tool that does exactly what you want without necessarily having to hire a technical team or a technical co-founder. That's the case. So, next step. Next step that a lot of people are discovering and that are very surprised is that actually no code doesn't mean no work. So it's like a no-code tool. I click 2 times and it's ready, right? No, it's unfortunately not like that, meaning that no-code is a tool, not a magic wand. And it does make a lot of things, simpler, faster, more efficient. But if you're going in the wrong direction, and if your idea is incorrect, or as Vyacheslav was suggesting, you didn't think this through entirely, so no-code will not be a solution to your initially inadequate, let's say, statement or a mission. It probably will get you there a lot faster to a failure, which is great, but it will not turn failure into success just because you're using no-code on its own. It's a tool. So as I mentioned, it's a tool that you should treat as a tool, not as a solution, meaning that A great example, I think a couple of speakers also mentioned today, lean startup methodology. It's where all the fancy MVP and all the other buzzwords are coming from. So actually the author of the book, Eric Ries, is one of the investors of Bubble platform that we're working on. So no-code tools, most of them at least, are a great embodiment of build, learn methodology, meaning learn fast, fail fast, make the conclusions, and make the right step based on that. It's kind of a super convenient tool exactly for that purpose. So instead of doing it in the old way, when you have an engineering team that are always busy, that always have stuff to do, like in the typewriter on the left of the side of this picture, and you don't really want to bring anything to them unless it's super validated and stuff. Instead, you can use a laptop, which is a no-code tool in our world. We're biased, obviously, but and test those theories yourself. Tweak this button, put this here, put this there, and it will get you there a lot faster. So some of the examples that one of our colleagues was giving, that basically they were doing the user validation testing, and it only took them half a day to create a page that they shipped. It would probably take us half an hour to do the same and ship the page, which would actually be a working page, not just a mock-up. So the build phase gets a lot more efficient with no code, so this might actually bring you to a bit of trouble, which I'll just tell you about in a second, but it's that good. So because it's that efficient, because it gives you a lot more freedom, and a lot more people can do that. I can do that, you can do that, everybody here can do that. Anybody that can move a file from folder to a folder can use no code, which is great. But it's so much easier to get stuck in build mode because of all the opportunities that you have. What does it mean to get stuck in build mode? When you're thinking about, okay, I need to add this one last feature, and I need to polish this one text, I need to add this much button, and do this. I mean, anybody that has ever launched anything knows exactly what I'm talking about. You want to launch a product that is perfect, or at least good enough, and it's almost never good enough. You always find something that is not great, could be done better. You know, it's a never-ending loop. And in case of the engineering team, let's say a traditional approach, you always have a feedback saying, man, we're tired of doing this, all these iterations. Can you launch it already? And we were like this has cost us a lot of money to hire a team that would do specifically this button shuffling because it doesn't bring really anything good. With no code, you can do that by yourself. You can sit all day and move the buttons here and there, and it can be prettier, it can be better, it can be worse. Basically, you have no feedback loop, so it's very easy to get stuck in that mode, which is something that you don't want to do. What you want to do instead is you want to be in a ship mode. Again, a couple of my colleagues were suggesting exactly that. So, and lean startup methodology, if you condense it to like one sentence, is about that. Launch your product to your best knowledge, doing all the preparation work that you can, and then learn based on the results coming from the real world. Because regardless of how great your preparation is, regardless of how wonderful your customer development is, real world is going to give you a different feedback, and you will have to iterate on your product no matter what, at least in the software world. Maybe not in landing to the moon, but yeah, software world is different and better in that sense. So no-code tools make it so much easier. You're putting something out there very fast. People are giving you immediate feedback. It's a real product. It's not a mock-up. You don't have to catch anyone in the corridor to get that feedback. You put it out there, and if people are using it, great. If people are not using it, okay, not so great, but why? And you take the learning really fast, and you apply the changes, and you iterate on the product super fast. And you can do it actually with a very limited amount of resources by yourself. Technically, but actually usually there's a person who's responsible for that, but still, not an engineering team. You don't need a CTO for that and all that stuff. Last, but a very important part, this is probably more related to the products that have already found their fit, that are already working and they want to scale. So there's one of the very few disadvantages of no-code that I have to mention, is when let's say you're working with a traditional development framework, like, I don't know, JavaScript, whatever it is. If you want to scale your team, if you want to move a lot faster, then in a lot of cases, not always, but in a lot of cases, all you need to do is hire more people. And it's pretty easy to find a JavaScript developer, let's say, okay, maybe not so easy, but much easier, let's say, than, let's say, hire a no-code developer, because the development world is huge and enormous, and there's always not enough software developers, but there's still a lot. I'm sure that there are some in this room right now that are maybe open for work. But for no-code, the market is growing super fast, but in comparison to the overall development market and the overall resources, the people with no-code experience are scarce. So if your scaling strategy includes hiring a team quickly, this will probably fail, because there's just not enough people in the market that are proficient in no-codes. For example, we in Moldova are always hiring people from zero. So we always are teaching them for the first 1, 2, 3 months exactly what they need to know and how they need to work specifically with the tools, because we don't expect to find anyone that knows anything about this. Sometimes we're lucky and we actually find people with some experience, but most of the times it's just about validating that the person has interest and then teach him everything. So probably in your no-code journey, you will have the same issue. So plan to grow. And in all the companies, actually, regardless of what the stack is being used, it's always better to have someone that has grown in the company, that understands the company vision, understands the company tools, methodologies, and framework to then step up and take the lead and then scale from there. So with no code, this is probably the only opportunity that has to be in the plan from the very beginning. Last but not least, usually the debate is, okay, no code is great, but code is better. Or code is great, but no code is better. And this keeps going on for ages. And it's actually pretty good for the buzz, meaning that it's a very easy topic to talk about, like to find some advantages or disadvantages of this and that. Okay, you're this and you're that, and this is great for PR, if you will. And this is how probably the first discussions about no code even started. I remember we were on the TechCrunch Berlin, and we were wearing the t-shirts that were saying no more code. And a lot of people approached us and they were asking, do you want me to lose my job? Are you? No. I was like, no, it's not like that, but it's a great conversation starter. But the concept is actually incorrect, meaning that it's not one or the other. It's actually completely the opposite. The code and no code are perfect tools that are meant to be together, meaning that the no code and code combination is a great balancer for the team. For example, let's say you have a traditional development company, product development company, and you have an engineering team, you have product management, you have marketing, or whatever that is, sales. So usually in the traditional flow, whenever you need to change to the product, whenever you need to validate some idea, you go to the engineers, and that's a problem. They're always busy. So, and you have to find some resource and, beg and threaten someone to do something for them to do something for you. But in the case of no-code, they can do their stuff. They can be busy with whatever they need to be busy with right now. But a lot of things you can do actually on your own. You can launch a customer development page like the colleague from Alex was sharing all by yourself. You can take a template, you can tweak it around, you can play with the buttons, and you can do it yourself, and then come to the engineers with the development plan that is already done by yourself. Or, let's say, if it's a hardcore development company and there's only engineers, there's nobody else. So even the developers can actually use no code. Let's say, if there are developers in the room, you know how much developers like doing trivial things, such as login, email form, I don't know, yes or no, this pop-up, everybody's sick of it because they did it so many times that it's really a waste of their talent to be spending time on this. But still, there's nobody else that can do that besides the actual technical people. What can happen right now is it can be either outsourced to someone else within the same company, or this can be done by the developers 10 times faster. They can just copy and paste, plug and play, do this, and then focus on whatever they really want to do, create something new, create something that doesn't yet exist, and then combine the two together. So code and no code are actually perfect tools, and they exist in great synergy, and you can use both intermittently, and it doesn't compromise one another. That's the last takeaway. And I am open for all your questions. Poftim, пожалуйста.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I am more interested in the growth of your product, and if you can explain, please, the customer acquisition process, maybe your target audience for this product, like what is your segment, and what job you help people to get done. Thanks.
Sure, that's a great question. So there's a lot to talk about here because Zero Code is actually a lot of products, meaning that we started as an agency that was doing consulting work, and then we have actually translated our consulting work into products. So we have a few different ones. One of our product lines are the application templates, meaning that, let's say you have an idea that is 80% like Airbnb, but it's for conferences, when people can book a room, sell the tickets and stuff. But the components are pretty much the same. There's a landing page, there's a search page, there's a profile, payment system, etc., etc. This is the product that basically you're taking and then you're adding whatever you want on top of it. So this is one segment. Second segment is basically for hardcore Bubble developers when you need, let's say, an integration with QuickBooks or Facebook or Google, whatever you want. And you don't want to spend time on working with the API and do that, so we sell that to them. And the last product that is commercially launched that we are developing is the educational platform. When, let's say, you want to learn about no-code and you don't know where to start, so we're giving a video-based platform for that. So there are very different customer segments, as you understand, but we have been lucky enough to actually get into the community, find the community of people where all of these different customer segments are present. Basically, it's a Bubble community. So people that are enthusiastic about no-code, that know what a no-code is, that know what the value of the no-code is, they just hang out on the forum. In your case, this may be a Slack group or a Twitter account or, I don't know, Discord channel, depending on what area you're in. So make yourself visible in that community, make yourself helpful in that community, because most of the people just come to advertise their product. Hey, we're launching this, and you never hear from that person again until they launch something else. But if you're actually present in that community, if you're advertising, if you're helping it, people are recognizing the value, they're recognizing your input as a human, and they usually, whenever there's a need to actually use something that you're offering, they're remembering about you because you are sincere and you are real. So this would be my recommendation. This is how we did this, and this worked for us pretty well.
So I got two questions. They might sound stupid. I'm just not familiar enough with the no-coding strategy or technology at all. First one, you mentioned the coins platform. So I suppose since they're having to like redirect some of your money from your bank account to somewhere, it's got to be covered by a shitload of security and integrations. Does the no-coding also cover all of that and all the backend, or is it mostly for the front side?
That was one question.
Yeah. Oh, you want the second one as well?
Sure.
Yeah. The second one is how reliable are all these platforms? Like, let's say, do I highly rely on, let's say, Bubble, or what was the name of that? And
yeah.
All of a sudden they go bankrupt, or they decide they want to be a movie streaming platform or anything like that. How screwed am I? How is it easy is it to migrate all of my work to somewhere else? Or do I just have to do it all from the very beginning?
Yeah, okay. Great questions. Let me start from the last one. Let's say you're building your product on some framework. This need not necessarily be Bubble framework, but let's say you're using some component for your application. Let's say, in case of coins, by the way, which is very relevant, they're using a platform which is a SaaS service. It's called Plaid, that basically integrates with your bank account, and they are covered by a shit ton of security. So basically, what coins does is basically they are a front end that connects to the back end of the different platform that then provides the inputs that Coins processes and then acts based on them. So that's kind of the architecture in a nutshell of what Coins is. So if Plaid gets bankrupt, Coins is screwed. And actually, if for most of the, let's say, if AWS goes bankrupt, then a lot of platforms are screwed. So this is what was happening a couple of times in the last 2 years when there was a problem in AWS and suddenly the internet is not working. So everybody's crashing and stuff. So there's always a dependency in this world. This is what I'm trying to say. And let's say if you have built your startup on Bubble, Plaid, AWS, whatever it is, and suddenly you need to change ships, you will have to do it from scratch anyways. Or let's say you've built the application in Python, and then suddenly you need to do it in JavaScript. What are you going to do? You're going to do it in JavaScript from scratch. So that's the harsh reality. There are a lot of components that you'll have to can reuse, the most important being the actual business validation and market fit concept. This is the most precious, not the actual code base. But if, let's say, Bubble disappears for whatever reason, they won't. But let's say if, yeah, you'll probably have to do it from scratch. And about coins, I kind of answered your question, actually. Bubble by itself and all the other platforms, of course, are taking care of their security. There's basically a list of components. They're actually also based on AWS, so they're covered by all the encryption, firewalls, and security standards that are cutting edge of technology. But in this particular case, Coins doesn't even work with that information by itself, because it's using the underlying subprocessor, which is Plaid, that has all the compliance regulations and certifications to work with the bank info, and they're just providing that info whenever is necessary in an encrypted way that is guaranteed by Plaid. So this is always, there's always a way to do that, pretty much. Всем спасибо.